welcome to today's session. I hope that you can hear me okay and that this is streaming for you okay. LinkedIn is not playing ball as per usual. So hopefully you'll see this live stream okay on YouTube, and you can participate in the session by adding questions into the YouTube stream, and I will answer them at the end or where possible during the session. So this session is about how to buy and store Bitcoin safely. It's one of the questions I get asked most often when people are starting out in Bitcoin, because they really just want to understand the basics. So I thought that I would do this session just to run people through, and then I will give you some options about how you can learn more towards the end. Okay, so what we're going to cover in this session, I'll do a brief overview of what Bitcoin is, just to level set for everybody. And then I will talk about how to acquire Bitcoin, the role of exchanges, and look at different types of custody. So hot wallets, cold wallets, multi-sig, and collaborative custody. And I will then talk about the benefits of collaborative custody, just some general benefits, and also talk a little bit about estate planning and Bitcoin. We'll wrap up with some security points and some best practices for you, and just a quick summary at the end of what we have covered, as well as sharing some resources. So what's Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is a digital currency and it operates on a decentralized network. What's special about Bitcoin is that its supply is capped at 21 million. So it can't be debased in the way that, for example, fiat currencies can through money printing. So the inflation that you're seeing is largely due to governments and central banks printing excess amounts of money and therefore devaluing the money that you hold by just increasing the supply. This can't happen with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is secure. So it's secured by a network of decentralized nodes. I think there's over 45,000 nodes right now globally who have to verify all of the transactions that happen. And therefore, it makes it resistant to manipulation. So it has lots of qualities that other digital currencies do not have. And it's also extremely secure. So how do you acquire Bitcoin? Well, there are a few ways of doing that. You can do it through Bitcoin mining, which is basically a process of using compute power in order to essentially participate in a lottery so that you can guess a number, and that gives you the right to validate transactions and add them to the blockchain. When you do that, you receive a reward for doing that work, that compute, if you like. So that's how you acquire Bitcoin, through mining. You can also buy it on exchange, and this is the most common way of buying Bitcoin. So most people will use services like Coinbase, Kraken, and so on. And you need to just consider a few things with exchanges, such as fees, security, ease of use, and obviously the ability to withdraw your Bitcoin from that exchange. And the other way of doing it is peer-to-peer, which is really how Bitcoin was intended to be transacted. In fact, the white paper calls it Bitcoin a peer-to-peer monetary system, or peer-to-peer transaction system. So how does mining work? Well, back in the day, it was quite easy to mine Bitcoin just with a regular laptop or like personal computer, because there weren't that many miners on the network. But the more and more miners join the network, the more difficult, there's a difficulty adjustment, which makes it more and more difficult to guess the correct number in the lottery that allows you to write the transactions to the blockchain. So typically these days, people use dedicated machines called ASICs. And there's just an image here on the presentation of that. And they store those ASICs in what are, to all intents and purposes, data warehouses, which are specially called to allow the machines to operate effectively. You can also mine at home. So you could plug your miner in at home if you want to. Ideally, you would do that if you have a very cheap or free source of electricity or power. Most people will join mining pools. So if you think again about the a lottery analogy, if you buy an individual lottery ticket, you have a very low chance of winning the lottery. But if you join a large syndicate, then if somebody in that syndicate wins the winning ticket, you just distribute the profits between you. So that's really what a mining pool is. And most people will join a mining pool in order to increase their chances of having a regular stream of revenue from their mining efforts. Peer-to-peer. So as I said, this is how Bitcoin was intended to be transacted, a peer-to-peer monetary system. So if you go to a meetup, you might be lucky enough to find somebody there at a Bitcoin meetup who is willing to sell you Bitcoin for fiat currency. Many Bitcoiners do not want fiat currency anymore, and they do not want to part with their Bitcoin, but you still might be able to find a kind-hearted soul who will sell you some Bitcoin. The other thing you can do is charge for your services for Bitcoin. So if you produce goods or services, you could charge for those in Bitcoin. And lots of people do that today. And in fact, many people live on a Bitcoin standard where they earn in Bitcoin and they spend in Bitcoin. So that's actually a fantastic way to get Bitcoin for yourself. And many Bitcoiners have, operate in circular economies where they're essentially all living on a Bitcoin standard. But many Bitcoiners are happy to pay for services from other Bitcoiners or goods using Bitcoin itself. So that's a great way to acquire Bitcoin. So let's talk a little bit about buying on exchange. So you can buy from a variety of exchanges, but not all exchanges are created equal. So this is just an example of some of the exchanges out there. We've got Coinbase, Kraken, Coin Corner, and Bull Bitcoin. The role of exchanges is to allow you to buy Bitcoin with fiat currency. But one of the most important things to note about exchanges is that you need to withdraw the Bitcoin into your own personal self-custody. So what does that mean? When the exchange is custodying your Bitcoin, they're not actually holding the Bitcoin. It lives on the network. But the private key that is used to sign transactions, which is a 256-bit key, is custodied by the exchange. Now, what that means is that if your Bitcoin private key is being custodied by the exchange where you purchase that Bitcoin, you have an IOU for that Bitcoin. They actually control the Bitcoin. And that's not optimal for many reasons because it draws you into counterparty risk. Not all exchanges are created equal. So some are custodial, as I said, so they will custody your Bitcoin. So Coinbase, Kraken, and Coin Corner are all custodial. Some will allow you to withdraw your Bitcoin to self-custody and some will not. Do not buy Bitcoin on an exchange that does not allow you to withdraw, because you then end up in a situation where you're perpetually in a state of having just an IOU, which you can only ever exchange for fiat currency if you want to withdraw it. Bull Bitcoin, which is a Canadian-based Bitcoin exchange, is non-custodial. So they require you to supply a Bitcoin address where they can send the Bitcoin, and you should be controlling the key to that address, unless you're making a gift to somebody, obviously. It's important, as I said, to withdraw to your wallet. So don't think of your wallet as a proper wallet with money in it. It's not like a leather pouch that has something in it. It's just a device, a signing device that will custody your private key, which is used to sign the transactions. Counterparty risk. So Bitcoin exchanges do not have the same level of let's say fail safes. You don't have the same level of protections as a retail customer as you would in any other financial market situation. So for example, if you put your money into a retail bank up to a certain value, your funds will be made good if for some reason the bank goes under or your funds are stolen. That doesn't apply in the case of Bitcoin exchanges, and many Bitcoin exchanges have openly told their customers that this is the case, that they cannot guarantee that the funds will be retrievable in the event that the exchange goes under. We've seen several examples of this. So Quadriga was a Canadian exchange, which was basically a Ponzi scheme by the end, and the founder disappeared in mysterious circumstances. So I say disappeared, he allegedly died, but the circumstances were a bit suspicious. But many of the customers of the exchange lost a lot of money. Some funds were recovered, but not very much. FTX, a very recent occurrence. So again, the founder there disappeared. Sorry, not disappeared. The founder there was running Essentially a fraudulent operation where he was taking customer funds and using them for other purposes, for investments and other things, which he wasn't supposed to do. So it was a straight up case of fraud, but the customer funds were not protected because they had an IOU as opposed to actually owning the Bitcoin and having the private key in their own custody. Mt. Gox, similar situation, a very early exchange. They were using what's called a hot wallet. That got compromised and customer funds were stolen. I'll explain in a bit more detail what hot wallets are. But let's just say, broad brushstrokes, if you leave your Bitcoin on exchange, you are now exposed to counterparty risk, which is not optimal and is not how Bitcoin was intended to work. Self-custody. So we're going to go through talking about different ways of self-custody now. So hot wallets are called hot wallets because they're connected to the internet. So that could be an application on your PC, or it could be an app on your phone. But they open themselves up to malware and to being hacked because they have an internet connectivity. So why would you use a hot wallet? Well, a hot wallet is very convenient. It's a little bit like having cash in your purse. You can very easily spend it. So it's like the difference between having cash versus having, let's say, a savings account. So if you are transacting in Bitcoin regularly, it's ideal to have a hot wallet and have some Bitcoin on it. But you should think of your hot wallet in the same way that you would any other wallet. Consider it something that is not you don't carry any more Bitcoin in your hot wallet than you would cash in your regular wallet. So cold wallets are air gapped, so they're offline storage. And cold wallets can be lots of different things. The thing they have in common is that they're not connected to the internet. So even a piece of paper can be a cold wallet, and you would write what's called your seed phrase on the paper, which is 12 or 24 words. And those words, in the exact order that they're written, will reconstitute your 256-bit private key that you can sign transactions with. So you could put your seed phrases on paper, and that would be cold storage because it's not connected to the internet. But obviously, if you get a house fire or you're flooded or something happens to the piece of paper, you've lost access to your Bitcoin. So many people will store their seed phrases on metal plates, and you can see in this image a metal plate where you can basically create the words with little tiny metal letters that you slot in. So that's one way of doing it. And oftentimes people use signing devices. So the example here I have is of a Trezor, which is just a very popular, frequently used signing device. And this simply stores the private key that allows you to move the Bitcoin on the network. Again, it does not store your Bitcoin. It just stores the key that allows you to move it across the network. Just to summarize, really, cold wallets are better for long-term holding. So if your quantity of Bitcoin that you have in your possession is quite large, you probably want to have it in cold storage, and it provides better security. So why would you use a multi-sig? Well, some people prefer to not be a single point of failure. So what you can do is set up a multi-signature situation where you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, however many keys you want, and X number of keys are required to sign a transaction. So typically you'll have 3 keys to sign a transaction and 3 keys that are held, and 2 of the 3 will be required to sign a transaction. This does provide some extra security, but you are very reliant on the other parties who hold the keys knowing what they're doing. So if you have friends and family who don't understand how Bitcoin works and don't understand the importance of custodying the key, you are running the risk that they lose their private key and now you don't have access to your Bitcoin. So you can add additional risk in by using this solution. It's very dependent on who the parties are in the key holding process. But it can add additional security. So, for example, if you lose your key or if your key is stolen from you, then the Bitcoin can't be accessed without at least 2 of the 3 keys being put together. So that brings me lastly to collaborative custody. Collaborative custody is essentially just a multi-sig solution, but you have professional custodians in the place of family and friends. So, for example, I work for the Bitcoin Advisor. The Bitcoin Advisor used the 2 of 3 multi-sig solution, where the Bitcoin Advisor in Australia would hold one key. We work very closely with Unchained as well to hold another key. They're based in the US. And then the customer would hold a key themselves. So the benefits of this is that if the you don't need to rely on non-professionals or people that don't know Bitcoin, don't understand Bitcoin very well. You can also put these keys in. If you lose your key, actually, you also have 2 professional companies that can help you retrieve it. Hopefully that won't happen, but that's also another benefit of it. And it also means that you can pass that information on to other people. So, for example, if you want somebody else to be able to access your Bitcoin at some point, such as in inheritance, then you can give them access to the ability to contact the other party should you be unable to. So, it provides lots of layers of additional protection. No solution is risk free. There's just trade offs. But another one of the benefits of collaborative custody is the jurisdictional distribution. So if you have people holding keys in different countries and they are professional organizations, if you live in a country where maybe the rule of law isn't respected, the government tries to seize your Bitcoin, you have the ability to protect it by having keys in different jurisdictions. So, just to summarize, the benefits of collaborative custody: reduced risk of loss or theft. So, that would apply to an extent to any multi sig solution. You still retain some control because you have one of the keys. And then you have professional assistance in case the keys are lost or in the event of a death or something similar. So this brings me really to talk about estate planning. One of the great things about using a service like Bitcoin Advisor is that you can benefit from estate planning. So you can give all of the instructions of how to access your multi-sig vault, who to contact in the event, not the private key, just who to contact in the event that access is needed to the vault. And you can put those into your will. So this provides a great solution for passing on your Bitcoin to your heirs or anyone else, well, to your heirs, anyone that you want to, your children, your pets, whoever it might be. Some Bitcoiners prefer not to do that. They just prefer to let the Bitcoin be lost with them. If you choose to do that, the impact of that will be that everybody else's Bitcoin on the network will increase in value because Bitcoin, the quantity of Bitcoin will become smaller and therefore more scarce. But if you do want to pass it on to your heirs, then a great thing to do is to use a service like the Bitcoin Advisor, create a vault, have your will include instructions on how to access that vault. And in the event that you pass away, somebody can access the Bitcoin and be able to benefit from the appreciation and value, hopefully, of your Bitcoin. So let's just summarize with a few security best practices. Always enable 2-factor authentication. Do not use SMS text messages for 2FA. Always use an authenticator app because if you get SIM swapped, if somebody is using SMS to do their 2FA, then that can be compromised and they can reset your systems and your passwords. Regularly check your keys, so make sure that you can still access them, back them up, and so on. And it's also probably sensible if you are using a multi-sig to educate, or actually, if you're using a single sig, but also if you're using a multi-sig to educate your beneficiaries on how to access that Bitcoin. So explain to them that you're putting it in your will and that they can access it by, it will be included with the information that's in your will, or give them instructions on how they can access that in the event of your passing. So in summary, we've looked at how to acquire Bitcoin. So there are 3 main ways of doing that. You can purchase it on exchange. Obviously, if you do that, make sure you withdraw to self-custody and control your private key. You can mine Bitcoin. So you can buy a Bitcoin miner and start mining Bitcoin either at home or have a miner installed somewhere in a data center and join a mining pool so that you receive some share of Bitcoin when anybody in that syndicate wins the right to write the transactions to a block and wins the Bitcoin reward. Or you can get it peer-to-peer. So go to a meetup, see if a kind-hearted person will sell you some Bitcoin for fiat, or get paid to earn Bitcoin. So get paid to provide goods and services to somebody in exchange for Bitcoin. When you have your Bitcoin in self-custody, several different options. So hot wallets, which are connected to the internet, good for ease of use, bad for security. Cold wallets, offline, air-gapped from the internet, good for security, but you are a single point of failure. Multi-sig, you are not a single point of failure, but be very careful of who you do the multi-sig with to make sure that they understand the importance of custodying those keys. Collaborative custody, doing a multi-sig, but using professional organizations that deal in Bitcoin every day, in addition to yourself, so that you have some protection for that key custody. So with that, I would just ask if anybody has any questions at all that they would like to ask. If not, then we will wrap up. And I will just say that if you want to contact me, actually, I just unshared my screen, which I did not mean to do. There we go. So if you have some questions, but you prefer not to ask them in the chat, then you can book 30 minutes in with me using meetings.hubspot.com/K Edmonds. I'd be very happy to do a free consultation to go through all of this stuff with you and ask you any questions that you may have. I will send the deck out to everybody that was registered for this session. So here are the resources, some of the resources that will give you some more information on topics I touched on. So the Bitcoin Advisor actually has a chat GPT, which is great. So if you use chat GPT's premium version, you can go and ask it questions direct. You can go to bitcoinadvisor.com. So there is the link if you want to book a free consultation. Here is the list of resources. You can also subscribe to Access Tribe here. So here are all of the links if you want to follow Access Tribe online. So the resources are just the bitcoinadvisor.com. The Bitcoin Advisor has a chat GPT, and I've also included several articles on some of the exchange issues that had occurred. So I'd like to just say thank you to everyone very much for joining today. And please do contact me if you have any questions. I'd be very happy to chat to you and give you more information on this. And I hope that that was helpful.